The John Lebang Show has been known to make people laugh, sing, think, scream, throw things in rage, and generally lose their minds. Listener discretion is advised. Earthlings, and alert the media. Welcome to another edition of the John Lebang Show. In all these years I've been alive, ladies and gentlemen, in all these years, I never would have thought I would be defending or coming to the aid of this person. But when you do what I do here, and that is to talk about life, the world, the existence of mankind, what we do, how we treat each other, how the powers that be try to control us. When you do all that, and you're basically a commentator on life, you end up coming to the aid of somebody you never realized you would come to the aid of. And not that my words are going to aid this gentleman, but I'm siding with him on a particular issue. But it's not the first time that I've come to the aid of somebody I never thought I would do that. About, what was it, a year before, maybe even 2 years before the last election, the presidential election, that is, I came to the aid of Hillary because there were people turning their back on her because she was exposed to be a scumbag. And I can't remember the particular scumbaggery that she had associated herself with at that time. But maybe I'll check the archives in one of the breaks here and find the clip. But I came to her aid because there were people jumping off the Hillary bandwagon because she did this particular scumbag thing she did. It wasn't new. But I pointed out that, you guys are a bunch of hypocrites. You've supported her this whole time, and now you're jumping off because this particular thing that bothered you was too heinous, too terrible, when you'd been supporting her through all the other stuff. Well, in this particular case, and I know I'm dragging this out a little bit, but in this particular case, I'm not opposed to this person per se, but I just never thought I would be supporting what they said or supporting their freedom of speech on a particular subject. And I'm speaking about Kanye West. And the reason, there's only one reason I'm bringing this up, is because we have a local radio station, Detroit 105.1, The Bounce. Some of their on-air personalities are they're basically going to boycott Kanye West because he made some statements about slavery that they don't approve of. Doesn't mean they're wrong, what he said. And I think we're going to break it down a little bit. What he said and see if he wasn't speaking the truth. Here's what he said. When you hear about slavery for 400 years, 400 years, question mark, that sounds like a choice. These are Kanye West's words. He continues, like you were there for 400 years and it's all of you all. So he's pointing the finger at people. He continues, it's like we're mentally in prison. I like the word prison because slavery goes to, and then he keeps repeating, to direct to the idea of blacks. Those are Kanye West's words. And what he's saying is, at least my interpretation, and I'm pretty sure I am understanding him. I would have said this a little differently, but what he said is black people were slaves for like 400 years. And they obviously didn't do anything about it. They just remained slaves. And although there were cases, these are my words now, there were cases where there were little revolts and stuff. But in general, Kanye's saying that these people stayed slaves for so long they didn't try to not be a slave. I believe that's what he's trying to say. I'm going to try to use my words and see if I can't help people understand, because these people over here at the Bounce who are going to protest Kanye West's music, funny, I'm not even a fan of the guy, really. I don't listen to hip hop. I don't particularly relate with Kanye West on a lot of things. I never gave the guy interest. One, I'm way past the days of looking up to people who are rich and famous and have made their life through entertainment. I might have been impressionable at a younger age, but no longer. We're just human beings. Some make it to the big time. Most of us don't. That's how life is. And no matter how much it sucks for the little guy who really wants to make something of himself, there's just not enough room at the top of the pyramid for everybody to be up there. So maybe I can smooth this out so these people at the Bounce and anybody else who's going to protest Kanye West, maybe I can smooth this out for you just a little. I think he's saying this. These people who were slaves didn't fight for their freedom. And the only way you're ever going to have true freedom is if you make a choice. Are you willing to fight and die to get that freedom, or are you willing to compromise so you can live? Now, it wasn't safe and comfortable for many of the slaves, but because they didn't, as a whole, fight for their freedom, they chose the road of slavery. I think that's what he's trying to say. It took a revolution to give them their freedom. Finally, a bunch of people who weren't them said, this is enough of this. Instead of the people who were living through it, fighting for their freedom. Now, I'm just trying to maybe give you a different perspective on what Kanye West is saying here. This goes to all people. At one time or another, just about every type of person, every civilization has had a form of slavery, and people have lived under slavery. And because of that, at some points, some of these groups fought their way out of slavery. And some of them then became the top dog, and then they, in turn, took slaves for themselves. They didn't learn anything. And that's a funny commentary on the human existence. We don't ever seem to learn from our mistakes. The people who were slaves at one time, if they were ever to gain the power, they in turn would have slaves. They wouldn't give the freedom that they have just gained to everybody. It never seems to turn out that way. It's a sad commentary on the human existence. We had to fight our way through a revolutionary war because eventually we were going to be slaves of the United Kingdom, maybe not with whips and chains or whatever, but it was a taxation, something we're living through these days where we're taxed out our gourds, and the people don't seem to do anything about it. So they fought for their freedom back then. It came a point when America said, we don't want slavery anymore here. We don't want the slavery. Or at least the type of slavery that went on back then, because we have a different type of slavery these days. When you look at your bills and you look at how much everything costs to survive, and you have to go somewhere, you're obligated to go somewhere and do something every single day. And on top of that obligation, you're cut off the top. There's a percentage of what you do that's just purely taken away. You have no choice in the matter. A part of you is ripped away when you go and work for, some kind of corporation, and that's called taxes. And don't tell me we need these kind of taxes, an income tax. The country survived without it for a long time. Maybe we wouldn't have grown so fast without these income taxes, but maybe we wouldn't have gotten to so many wars, and maybe we wouldn't bomb so many countries today. All this stuff is all tied together. But I think what Kanye West was trying to say, and he's, I don't want to relate him to the president, but they both aren't the most articulate people on the planet. And I think Kanye was saying, if the ancestors would have fought for the freedom, yes, they might have died, but there wouldn't have been the amount of slavery and the length of duration of the slavery. But that's how I'm interpreting what Kanye West is saying. And I can't disagree with him. And for a station here in Detroit boycotting Kanye West over some words that have truth in it, may not have been 100% accurate, but there was truth in it. He wasn't lying. He wasn't making a false statement. He was saying, I'm trying to translate it, but I think he was trying to say if people would have fought for their freedom, maybe way back in Africa when the slave trade was beginning, and fought off the slave traders and killed them, that there might never have been 400 years of slavery. There might never have been this civil war if it would have been handled in the beginning. I think that's what he's saying. If I am getting that wrong, Mr. Kanye West, please feel free to contact me. We'll get